A very good morning to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on a Thursday morning. No dramas today, and certainly not like it was yesterday morning when the news broke about Lucas Paqueta wanting to leave for Manchester City. I'll give you an update on that because it's not great news, to be quite honest with you. But I will give you an update on that and an update on all the other transfer stories very briefly about players coming and players going from West Ham United. Um, Before I do that, if you're new to the channel, please do hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell notification to let you know when I'm next on. I do these shows on a sort of pre-recorded shows several times throughout the week, and I do the West Ham Weekly, a live show on Monday nights. So let's get on with it. Lucas Paqueta first. Well, he's definitely leaving the club. He's on his way out, and it's he's not likely to be available for our Premier League game, our first Premier League game against Bournemouth this coming Saturday. It's said that if he doesn't get the move that he wants to Manchester City, he could go on strike. Such a shame for that to happen, but there's a distinct possibility that he may force West Ham's hand in order for him to get the move that he wants. There's a bid apparently of around about £80 million on the table from Manchester City, but West Ham will obviously push for at the very least 85 million, which is the value in his contract, release clause in his contract. But that was due to be for next summer rather than this summer. So yeah, it's a shock. It's a surprise. West Ham United is still desperately trying to persuade the player to stay, but it looks like his mind is made up. When Manchester City come calling and Pep Guardiola says, come and play for me, what are you going to do? It's a shame, but I think we're just going to have to move on. We're going to have to accept it, and hopefully we get players in that will compensate for Paqueta leaving. And from what I understand, Paqueta is just one of several players in the squad that are rumoured to still be unhappy, and apparently being quoted as saying he doesn't fancy another relegation battle at the club. Well, mate, you were part of that squad last season, so as much as the tactics might be to blame, you also were party to us being down there. But anyway, we move on. Other players are unhappy, as I said, and I guess when the team is selected on Saturday, it might give us a hint or an insight as to who those other players may be. Anyway, we're going to have to get used to West Ham United becoming a selling club in the future, because that's the direction that Tim Steidten is going to take us. It's been, said that he'll take a more active role in the way that the whole club is being managed in the future, certainly after David Moyes leaves, and we're going to have to become accustomed to buying players and selling them when they're in their prime. The difference is, I guess, is that we need an infrastructure to manage that. So when we do sell a player, we've got a ready-made talent that will come straight in and replace the player that we've sold. We don't have that at the moment. So I kind of get why people become upset and a little bit panicky when players do leave. We've had Declan Rice leaving, Scamacca leaving, and now it looks like Paqueta leaving as well. But there doesn't seem to be a fast and ready plan to replace all these players. Look how long it's taken us to make our first signing in the transfer market so far this summer. But that's what we're going to have to get accustomed to. Moving forward, Steidten works that way, finds raw talent, gets them into the club, and when they're ready to move on to another club, that's what will happen. But like I said, hopefully we will have a better infrastructure in place in order to accommodate that. Right, what else is happening? Well, it looks like the deal for Aaron Cresswell to go to Wolves looks like it may be back on. The last time they wanted to take the player, apparently they didn't want to pay for him. They just wanted to get him on a free, even though he's still got a year left on his contract. It looks like now there might be something brewing with maybe a £2.5 to £3.5 million deal to sell the player on to Wolverhampton Wanderers. He's back in training, but he's training on his own, which is really sad, to be quite honest with you, after 9 years of tenure at West Ham United. Mikel Antonio apparently has a number of suitors that in the Premier League. They're showing apparent interest in him. His old club, Nottingham Forest, Wolverhampton Wanderers again, and apparently Everton are all sniffing around to see if Antonio might be available. There might be a £10 million price tag on his head, but clearly David Moyes doesn't want to let Antonio leave after the fact that Scamacca has already left the club. But I guess with 3 weeks still to go in the transfer window, it wouldn't surprise me at all if you see further twists and turns of players coming and players leaving. And of course, Nikola Vlasic, he got his wish. He's back at Torino now for a cut price deal of £9 million, plus I think £2 or £3 million in add-ons. So we wish him well. We knew he wasn't really going to come back and stake a claim at West Ham United. So good luck to him now. He's a permanent player at Torino. And one other player that's expected to leave, but this time on loan, is Flynn Downs to go on loan to Southampton. Now, this was rumoured to be part of a deal for Ward-Prowse, but it looks like it's a completely separate deal. He's well known to Southampton manager Russell Martin, as he coached him when he was a player when he was managing at Swansea, when Downs went there for one season before he joined West Ham United. Look, I think it could be a smart move for Downs, to be quite honest with you. I don't think he's going to get an awful lot of game time at West Ham United this season. And it looks as if, at this moment in time, Connor Coventry has been given the nod to be the backup midfielder for West Ham. Of course, like I said, there's still 3 weeks to go in the transfer window. And for all we know, we might hear tomorrow that Connor Coventry is on his way out of the club as well. So, on to some signings. Now, should all the players who have left and are rumoured to be leaving do go, it could swell our transfer kitty up to something like around about £230 million. Now, of course, we've already had money in for the sale of Declan Rice, £100 million. I'm not including add-ons, so this is just the agreed price rather than the add-ons as well. So for Declan Rice, we've already got £100 million, 22 million for Scamacca, and 9 million for Vlasic. So far, that's a total kitty of £131 million. Now, if other players do leave, it looks like we could swell that transfer kitty, as I've said, to around about £230 million. You add Paqueta for about 85 million, Antonio for about 10 million, and Cresswell for, say, £3.5 million. Now, I know we've already spent some of that money because we now have agreements in place and they're about to be revealed to the West Ham fans. Alvarez, £32 million. Maguire, 34.5 million, and I'll explain why in a moment. And then Ward-Prowse for 30 million. So we've already spent 96.5 million pounds of that, which would leave us, if all these other players do leave, it would leave us with a kitty of around about 133 million pounds. And that's to get ourselves a left back, another midfielder, and possibly 2 strikers, or an attacking player and a striker. So that's an average of around about 33 million pounds for each position that we need to fill, which is not bad, really. We should do quite well in being able to get players for that sort of money. Right. What about players coming in? Well, Alvarez, Edson Alvarez. The medicals are all done. He's now signed the contract. He signed it late on Wednesday night. He will be revealed to West Ham United sometime today on Thursday. By the time this video goes out, it might already be announced. But we're thinking that it will be announced round about midday-ish, if not sooner. Apparently, it's a 5-year deal. It's a £32 million plus a few million in add-ons, and he'll be on around about £100,000 a week. We all know that agreements are in place, like I've said, for Harry Maguire and James Ward-Prowse, and they're having their medicals today as well. And maybe they'll be announced at the same time as Edson Alvarez. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Now, the Ward-Prowse deal is a straightforward £30 million, and I guess with some add-ons, but none that I'm currently aware of. I don't know the length of the contract for him, but he will also be another player on £100,000 a week. And then, as I've said, Harry Maguire, there's a compromise deal that's happened here. It was a £30 million bid to sign the player, but Maguire is being offered £100,000 a week in salary at West Ham. Now, He had 2 years remaining on his Man United contract, and he would have been on about £190,000 a week because Man United had qualified for the Champions League. And what's happened is that Man United and West Ham have agreed to share the compensation for the player, who would have lost around about £9 million in salary over those 2 years. So in effect, we're paying £4.5 million on top of the £30 million that we bid for the player. Compromise deal, I guess if it's to get the player through the front door, then I guess that's what we have to do. All three players, like I said, should be signed in time in time to be made available for the game against Bournemouth this coming weekend. So we may see one or two of them in the starting lineup, if not all three. Now, what other news have we got? Well, we've made an inquiry for Arsenal striker Falorin Balogun. He is rumoured to be available for around about £40 million. I believe Monaco is interested in him, plus another one or two other clubs in Europe. He had a preference to go to Inter or AC Milan, but they can't afford him for the £40 million. Now, do we take a risk on him? He's a decent young player, and I'm going to talk a lot more about him in another show that I've pre-recorded that will go out later today. Decent player. He had a fantastic loan spell at Reims, French club Reims last season, who's managed by West Ham fan Will Still. So it'd be interesting to see if we pursue that particular target. Of course, if Cresswell leaves, we're going to have to replace him with a left back. And it's rumoured that we've also made an inquiry for another Arsenal player, Kieran Tierney, who'll be available for around about £20 to £25 million. Apparently, other clubs are interested in him in Europe as well. So if we want to get him, we need to make a move pretty fast. But my understanding is there's more interest in 21-year-old left back Ian Maatsen from Chelsea. We've revived our interest in him. He had an excellent season on loan at Burnley last season, and it would be a great addition to our to the squad. So let's see what happens there. And last but not least, looking like because Paqueta will be leaving, West Ham United are going to have to replace him. And we've maintained our interest in Youssof Fofana as a potential replacement. He's valued around about 40 million. I know in the show the other night, people were saying, oh, he's going for 60 million, etc. But I've checked and double checked and triple checked. And with 1 year left on his contract at Monaco, the 20-year-old French international is available for something like around 40 million, which, to be honest with you, is certainly a bargain. He will be a great box-to-box midfielder, and will certainly go some way to cushioning the blow when Paqueta leaves. So it'll be interesting to see if we go through with that deal. That's the roundup, short and sweet. I'm doing, like I said, I'm doing another show later on today, which is analysing where David Moyes is heading with the type of team that he's trying to put together in this summer transfer window. And I'm going to ask the question, whether it's going to be good enough to maintain some sort of, to not be in a relegation battle in the Premier League, and whether it will be good enough for something to happen in Europe as well. If you hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell notification to let you know when I'm next on, you'll get notification of that show coming up. Thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful Thursday. It's almost the end of the week. Our first game's coming up in a couple of days' time. Do keep the faith, people. Things can only get better from here on in. And I'll see you all very soon.